Welcome to the Time Capsule Show, where we explore the meaning of life in the 21st century through the eyes of people just like you and me. I'm Monica, and today we have a very special guest, Miss Madeline Hope Stephenson. Hi, Madeline. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, yes. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Madeline, I understand that you're in the film industry. Can you tell us more about that, please?
Sure. So I've basically been a filmmaker for as long as I can remember. I think I made my first movie like before I started forming memories because I think I was like maybe 9 or 10 when I got interested in filmmaking, and it's been a really wild ride ever since. I went to NYU and studied film in the class of 2016, and stayed in New York a couple years after that. I've done everything from PAing to script supervising to producing and obviously directing. And I recently moved to Los Angeles, where I now work for a voiceover talent agency.
So, what do you think is your favorite project that you worked on?
There's so many good ones. I did the one that I feel like I always gravitate towards is a pilot I shot for a TV class at NYU. It was a TV class that basically mimics the process of creating a TV show. So there's a showrunner. Our showrunner is named James Farley, and he wrote a pilot episode called Sheridan, which is sort of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer-esque supernatural high school drama. And I was lucky enough to be able to direct it. And it was just such a great experience because, I don't know, there was something about like the people involved and maybe the time that it happened. Everything just came together so perfectly to create like such a wonderful summer camp feeling. And we even had like down to like the PAs. We were really, really close, and that was a whole semester of my life. So, or of my school experience. So it was just really, really fun and really just like such an affirmation that the film industry is really worth it when you work with people that you really love being around. And I think the final product, maybe it's something that we love, but I think it was something that other people enjoyed too. So yeah, I think Sheridan was my favorite filmmaking experience so far.
Cool. And so, if you were pursuing a different path, what would you be doing and why?
I think it's funny because I think someone else you've interviewed on the show said the same thing, but I think I would pursue the path of becoming a therapist because therapy is something that I'm kind of obsessed with. It's like something that's really helped me in my life. It's something that I feel like a lot of people could benefit from. And I just love how it's such a non-judgmental profession, and it's all about like listening and getting to know yourself and understanding yourself. And I wish that I could do that for other people. I really hope that my films do that for people, but I do love how therapy is like a really direct route to self-understanding and a direct route to changing people's lives for the better. The other one that I thought of was I do fantasize sometimes about being an English teacher, like a literature teacher, because that English teachers are also another really positive force in my life and in my my formation of my identity. I love fiction. I love reading. I'm definitely in the camp of like there is a reason why, you know, like a character's shirt was blue, whereas I think that annoys a lot of other people. But I love analyzing stories, and yeah, I mean that subject never felt like school to me at all. And I fantasize about it because it to me it seems like a much more stable profession, stable industry to be in, whereas filmmaking is not. And so yeah, those are sort of my two other um, interests that I would be doing if I could, if film didn't have such a tight hold on me.
I see. Um, what would you say your favorite book was in English class? The one that transformed you?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna say one, and then I'm gonna think of another one like later. That's more accurate. Wait, let me think. I guess I would say To Kill a Mockingbird. I have kind of like a love-hate relationship with it because I don't feel like my school did enough to teach me about like racism and systemic racism in America. But nevertheless, that book is one of my favorite books. And I think like the writing is so beautiful. It's actually very cinematic. There are scenes in it, and when I'm reading it, I can picture it so clearly, and I feel like I'm living it, and I feel like the characters are very real, um, and I just love it. I love it so much.
So, Madeline, we're now in the segment of the show we like to call past, present, future. So, how do you see yourself now, and how does it compare to 5 years ago?
I'm wondering like how I would answer that question if the pandemic hadn't happened, and I think it would be a very, very different answer. Um, I think it would have been a much more like career focused answer. I think I probably would have said 5 years from now, I will have already directed like my first feature film, or like whatever like metric I was measuring, I would have been measuring my life by at that point. But now I'm in such like a, I think like a lot of people, I'm in such a like place, such a reflective place right now. Um, I'm very much just like going within and like dismantling a lot of beliefs that I had before the pandemic, like a lot of like limiting beliefs, a lot of negative beliefs, inherently negative beliefs, and just clearing out the attic. I've been like doing a lot of meditating and a lot of like just sitting in stillness, and reprioritizing. And so right now I'm in a very, yeah, very, very like quiet, reflective, gentle place. Um, 5 years from now, I really hope that the I really hope that the seeds that I'm planting now will blossom. Like I'll be out of my 20s. I've always looked forward to being out of my 20s. I don't know why. I just have a feeling about it, that maybe I'll be able to like let go more. I just When I picture myself at 32, I picture myself like writing stories because they feed my soul, not my ego. um, I see myself hopefully letting go of the belief that like I am just a filmmaker and that's all I do. Um, One of my favorite artists, Miranda July, she'll make a feature film, and then she'll write a novel, and then she'll make a feature film and write a novel. And I think that's such a wonderful way to be, because it's, I think I really struggle with the word artist for some reason. I always have. I don't know why, but I'm hoping 5 years from now I can embrace that about myself and embrace like the totality of just being a creator and being a storyteller, um, and that I feel free enough to tell stories in any way, in whatever way the story calls for. Um, so yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it does. It does. I really think you're already very creative, um, especially with like all your ideas that you presented in this video so far.
Thank you. Yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely an artist. Just hard to accept that. I don't know why, but I will spend the next 5 years figuring that out.
mhm. So that jumps on to our next question. What principles do you live your life by?
One of the things that I believe, I guess this would be considered a principle, but something I don't really have for myself all the time, is kindness. Um, I was basically raised to be kind. I was raised by really kind parents, and that's something that I think that's probably like one of the most important things you can be. Um, it's really, really easy to lose sight of that, um, especially in such like a harsh time. But yeah, no, I think to me that is probably my biggest and most important principle.
Cool. So, Madeline, what would you say you're grateful for?
My family. I'm really grateful to have um, like a family full of like I'm like, my parents are amazing. They're so supportive. Um, I'm really grateful to have a brother who I feel like I've become really, really close to in the past few years, a younger brother. And also, I'm really grateful that him and I share movies. Like, we both are obsessed with movies, and we've always talked about them, and that's something that really bonds us. And so I'm also really grateful to have found something that I love doing at such an early age and to still have it. I think that's a really rare and beautiful thing, and I've never taken that for granted.
Okay, Madeline. So, this is the part of the show where, well, this is the question that gives our name to our YouTube channel. If you were to leave something in a time capsule for people to dig up 100 years later, what would you put in there and why?
So I tried to think of like a deep answer to this, but I just like, ever since the pandemic started and we went into lockdown in Los Angeles, and then the Black Lives Matter protests took off, I've been doing something that I've never done before, which is filming the world with no intention of using that footage to tell a story. I felt this like really urgent need to capture history, um, for history's sake. So actually, there's something that I learned at the protest, which is that you really shouldn't film people, protesters, for their own safety. So that was sort of another thing that informed my decision to just capture footage and not use it for any reason. Just know that one day, maybe 100 years from now, like, people will be really excited to see this intimate footage of what life was like, at this time. So I feel like I've already been doing that, before you asked me on the show, I've already been considering that. I'm also like a huge history nerd. I'm really, really interested in especially in film history. And one thing I love doing is like watching the old footage of like that like street filmmakers used to film on the streets of like New York or like Istanbul or Seoul. There's all this footage that like people just used to set up a camera on the sidewalk and just film passersby. And I love watching that because I'm so fascinated to see like what life was like at that exact moment in time, and all the details of like what people wore and how they acted. And the best and most interesting moments are when the people become aware of the camera and like what how they react. And it's like very similar, or it's almost exactly the way people react to a camera on the street now, which is like some people run away and some people like run towards the camera. It's like 50-50 split. But I really hope that, you know, someday people will watch this very ordinary footage that I took about life in 2020, and will be um, fascinated by it, or be able to like learn something from it. Um, yeah.
Cool. So, what was your favorite like shot that you took?
Favorite
Like,
shot?
yeah, your favorite shot, like when you went to the protest or like just filming on the
Oh,
street, what would you say
mhm.
your favorite memory was?
Interesting. Hmm. I think my favorite shots are when I was able to capture how big the crowd really was. Um, like when we would turn a corner or like climb to the top of a hill, because Los Angeles is actually kind of hilly in some parts, and just turn around and see that there's like thousands of people behind us and we didn't even know they were there, because maybe the news wasn't really like reporting on it, or like we couldn't. It's hard to tell how big a protest is when you're in it, but then when you climb a hill and turn around, it's really powerful to see like how many people have joined behind you, or in front of you. And so I think those were my favorite shots, because I think it'll be amazing for people to someday see how many people showed up for this cause.
Cool. So, Madeline, is there anything else that you'd like to tell our viewers?
Anything else you want to know?
Oh, anything that you feel like our viewers should know?
um I I guess I would say like um the best, like life really starts, at least it started for me, once you realize that you don't really know anything. And that is so freeing. This was especially, I think, important for me as a filmmaker, who started really early. I since I started when I was like maybe 9 or 10, like I thought I knew how to make a movie. By the time I got to like 18, 19, I was like, yeah, I think I pretty much got this. Like, I mean, I've been doing this my whole life, but really, um, really, I didn't know anything. And that comes, I think, with age and wisdom to realize, and courage, to realize that it's actually it's okay, and it's actually exciting, to accept that you are only just beginning to understand something that you really love to do. I think that's when like the real learning starts. And so that's why I say like don't rush, don't try to rush a career in film if that's what you're interested in. It's a lifelong it's really a lifelong journey, and it will only deepen with time. And to me, that's once I realized that, that was a really exciting thing to like accept into my world. So yeah.
Thank you. So tune in again next week for another amazing addition to our time capsule. Thank you, Madeline, for being on our show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.